But we also looked at the skills mismatch inside the university to be able to address that.
Right.
In partnership with the University of Waterloo, we're looking at how do you bring in sort of experiential learning, work integrated learning approaches, the co-op educational models, and we're working with 2 key universities in the UAE, and we're hoping to expand that to the region.
Hello and welcome to the Global Impact Summit. My name is Patrick Brothers, co-CEO of Holland IQ, and I'm here in Cairo, Egypt, with Danah Dajani, Director of Programs and Partnerships at the Abdulla Al Ghurair Foundation for Education. Welcome.
Thank you, Patrick.
Can we start by learning a little bit more about your role and your organisation and the work that you do?
Yes, of course. Like you said, I'm the Director of Programs and Partnerships, so I take care of designing the programs to make sure they're aligned with the needs on the ground, and building all partnerships from all over the sort of globe, if you like, and especially in the Arab region. We adopt very much a collaborative approach to all our work, so this is very important for us. I also take care of something that I feel very honoured, and it's something that's very special to me, which is the Abdulla Al Ghurair Refugee Education Fund. It's our chairman's personal philanthropy, so it's the funding coming out from his own pockets, and focused on refugee education in Jordan and Lebanon.
Can you share a little bit about the background of the organisation?
Sure. So the Abdulla Al Ghurair Foundation was established in 2015. Abdulla Al Ghurair, who is our founder, has been a sort of philanthropist for decades, before the 60s. But he is the generation of philanthropists that we call the silent philanthropists in our region. And those philanthropists believe that the right hand doesn't know what the left hand gives. It's philanthropy done in the very private space. And then in 2015, our chairman, who is Abdullah's son, Abdul Aziz Al Ghurair, decided that it's very important to institutionalize their giving and the philanthropy. And the founder decided that we want to see this in the long run and not just ad hoc. So we set up the foundation in 2015, and the idea of the foundation is very much focused on education, but it's about the journey of empowering young Arabs between educational opportunities right up until opening livelihood opportunities for them. So it's really looking at that kind of journey and how you equip these young people with the right educational skills. And we focus on the outcomes, which are the livelihoods. But this is it in a nutshell, really.
Yeah. What are some of the challenges and the opportunities that you see here in the region that are most interesting to the foundation? So
different kinds of challenges that I think, it's spread across the region between the skills mismatch between what is taught at schools, universities, and what is required in the private sector. And I think what the pandemic has really shown is that technology is moving so fast, and yet we're not able to provide the academic kinds of skills that are required in the private sector. Another challenge that we look into is the corporate sort of engagement. How can they be more engaged? When we look at strategic philanthropy, it's looking at philanthropists like our chairman or founder, and how they can be more engaged within different kinds of challenges. One of the biggest challenges we see is that we focus on education. Like I said before, we focus on a collaborative approach, but a hungry child cannot really graduate and work. So we try to collaborate with other donors to look at whether it's food security, whether it's health, whether it's WASH, whether it's different kinds of, sectors. So we very much try to, address the different kinds of SDGs through a nexus model. The other challenges we see with the most vulnerable, like I talked about the refugee education, are different aspects with the most vulnerable, whether it's early marriage, child labor. How do we address these kinds of issues? The conflicts in our region, external factors that we can't have a control over. But how do we ensure that young people don't miss out on education or are left behind? This is the sort of things we look at. There will be different kinds of challenges that I can also discuss in the session as well.
Can you share a little bit more about that initiative, the refugee initiative, like what it is, how it came about, and what it's doing?
Sure. So His Excellency Abdul Aziz Al Ghurair set it up in 2018. When we did the research, we tried to identify what are the gaps that we could fill sort of, for refugee education? There's a lot of donors that are focused on refugee education, but we wanted to see, as a philanthropist and a private philanthropist, he set up his fund, which is Islamic philanthropy, of about 35 million USD. And it's over a 4-year period. The original idea was to reach 20,000 young people in Jordan and Lebanon as hosting the highest sort of refugees per capita.
Yeah.
Today we're in our 4th year. We focus on secondary education because what we realized on the ground is only 1.4% of refugees are able to complete secondary education.
Wow.
Only under 5% are able to complete secondary education as well. So you have a very big pipeline are going to be a lost generation for education. So what we do is we support organizations. We currently have 20 partners on the ground. Thankfully, we're able to reach 64,000 rather than the original target of 20
wow.
because we did the collaborative approach.
Yeah.
We looked at other donors, what they can support and what's allowable for them, same with us. And we're able to really maximize the impact through leveraging these resources. It's very important for us. So we look at secondary education in trying to provide young refugees with academic support in the core subjects like English, particularly English is extremely a huge need, sciences and math as well, and then providing them with ensuring that it's including as well the transferable skills and the needs that are not really tangible, like the mental health and well-being, psychosocial, of course, looking at how do you integrate the family as well so that you see it more holistically. The second part we look at is the journey between education to livelihoods. And as you know, with refugees in Jordan and Lebanon, employment restrictions are getting even stricter. And unemployment for the host countries is increasing. So when you think about Lebanon and the crisis that has happened since October 2019, and then the pandemic, and then further economic crisis, you can't, expect to add to the burden. So we look at certifications for these young people that are not only, market-driven in the country, but also globally. So, and we have, through our partners, been able to say, for example, a Syrian refugee living in Lebanon, but working remotely in France because he got the software programming, certification that's a need.
Wow.
So we look at these kinds of things, and we work with our partners to make sure that the certificates are very much market-driven, the private sector's engaged as well, and the host communities. It's not just for refugees. So now it's almost a 50-50 as well.
It's really interesting. It's so important, that work. I mean, I would have thought, other than your collaborators, there's just not enough people who are focusing on those vulnerable populations, right? And the governments, as you said, are very stretched and
that's right. Yeah, what we've seen as well is that, a lot of the international community came in for the humanitarian response, which is extremely important. But after that, how can we build them to empower them to actually open doors? And this is what we're asking for, and our chairman constantly asks other people, like especially philanthropists, to come forward and to really look at strategic philanthropy where you're looking at impact, not a charitable approach that it was previously.
Brilliant.
So this is one of our biggest asks as well. Yeah.
Beyond the refugee project, what's the kind of geographic focus of the foundation?
We work in all the 22 Arab states.
Okay.
Serving sort of young people across board.
Yeah.
Our age group is between 15 to 35. And different, all age-specific kinds of programmings. One of the first flagship programs that we had was a scholarship program for Arabs, overachievers, to be able to access higher education.
Oh, wow.
But what we realized at the time, sort of in 2019, we were able to support over 1,000 students in scholarships to these higher education institutions. But we were getting over 50,000 applications.
Yeah.
So one philanthropist cannot achieve all of that. So we decided to work on a strategic shift in 2020 and worked on strengthening the educational systems. So we partnered with, for example, the American University of Beirut, AUB, and we've created the Abdulla Al Ghurair online learning hub in the Maroon Sam'an School of Architecture and Engineering. So in this way, AUB Quality Education is able to reach more young people through this online learning. We've also provided capacity building in partnership with AUB and AUC on how do you do online learning, because before the pandemic, when we go to people, they're like, what do you mean online learning? After the pandemic, all these universities are coming and saying, can you support us? So in the UAE, we also set up a consortium of 9 universities in partnership with the Ministry of Education. But we bring in the sort of instructional designer support, expertise, supporting the universities of how do you transition some of your courses to online. How can we reach young people that are, geographically hard for them to come and access? And it makes access more affordable. The other sort of focus that we look at is upskilling and career readiness. So we've started a program, an initiative actually in the UAE. We're incubating it there and hoping to expand it to the region. It's called Namu. Namu in Arabic means growth. And so it's a multi-stakeholder approach to really help young people in upskilling quality training opportunities in market-led sort of certifications. The first program we did was called Tech Up in partnership with Udacity to be able to provide 1,000 nano degrees, but also foundational digital courses for over 20,000 young people. The idea there was that we collaborated with the corporate sector from the onset to make sure that the sort of tracks that we're providing and the nanos that we're providing are very much aligned to what they're looking for in the private sector. And then it's getting them to come on board, working with the universities, etc.
Fascinating.
The other one is looking at career readiness. We have a platform called the Young Thinkers Program. And that exposes young people to what are your interests and helping them understand the kinds of jobs that are out there, but also what it takes to actually study those courses. And then after that, how do you help them in finding those kinds of jobs? The third area that we looked at is how do you bring in, we looked at skills mismatch with Namu after they graduate with the upskilling. We also look for other pathway projects that can lead to different kinds of employment. This is one area that we're looking to expand regionally as well with partners, we hope. But we also looked at the skills mismatch inside the university to be able to address that. In partnership with the University of Waterloo, we're looking at how do you bring in sort of experiential learning, work integrated learning approaches, the co-op educational models. And we're working with 2 key universities in the UAE, and we're hoping to expand that to the region. So the idea is that we start working, incubating the ideas in the UAE and then broadening it out to the region.
Wow, so many wonderful initiatives.
Yeah, it's quite exciting,
It's great. Finally, what are some of the trends that you're hearing or hoping to hear or will be listening out for here at the summit?
I think I might have said the word collaboration so many times, but I can't say it enough, because I feel that there's so many challenges that come up in our region. We've learned to be agile, we've learned to be responsive and flexible as donors because you can't plan, especially in countries like Lebanon, the change happens every day and you can't expect them to say, let's stick to the plan, this is what you had to do. So we're very agile in that way, but we can't do it alone. And we'd love to see more philanthropists and foundations that are part of the equation. And stakeholders coming together. So it's not just a one angle, but we can really, if we support something that someone else can't support, we're happy to collaborate. We're happy to share lessons learned. And we're happy to see, the data, what can we do together? Because I feel by leveraging these resources, we're really able to impact more. And I hope that we can continue these discussions so they don't just end up just when we see each other, but to really have that sort of ongoing. And
wow. Well, thank you so much for sharing all of that, and congratulations on the impact that you're no doubt having in all of those markets, and all the best for the rest of the summit.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Danah.
Thank you.